Yeah. I'm picking up. Oh, there's all right. Sorry.
She's looking right at you. How could she not see it?
You should have heard her Mike Johnson.
Oh.
We all set, James?
Yes, everything's ready.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Call the meeting of the Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Authority Board of Directors to order. Our meeting of Monday, May 11th. Dawn, can you take the roll, please?
Yes. Let's see. Director Janice Cater Thompson.
Here.
Director Chris Corsi.
Here.
Director Susan Harvey.
Here.
Director Gerard Giudice. Director Nasa Hinton. Chair Ariel Kelly. Here. Director Todd Lands.
Present.
Director JB Leap.
Here.
Director Sandra Lowe. Director Jeff Okrepke.
Here.
Director David Rabbit. Director Linda Hopkins. That's everybody.
We do have Chair Kelly online with us. Do we need to go through a procedure for that?
Director Kelly, do you have any adults in the room with you?
Director Kelly, do you have any adults in the room with you?
There are none. No.
Are you appearing under just cause or multi-jurisdictional bodies?
Just cause. Because I have laryngitis and I'm sick.
Prove it. Prove it. Okay. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Chair Kelly. We'll try not to make you talk too much today. All right. Public comments on items not on our agenda today. Is there anyone in the room? Is there anyone online?
We do have an online person with their hand raised. Lori, when you're able to talk, go ahead.
Hi. I think I'm getting her laryngitis. I wanted to. I talked last month about the mascots program and the impact on Cotati, and everybody's wondering what is going on, because it's been a major impact to people in Cotati and any Rona Park and anybody that works in San Rafael. There's a temporary bus that comes up at like midnight and gets here at 1. But other than that, people who worked in San Rafael can't get home in the evening because they used to take Golden Gate Transit after work because it went to like 1. There's just there's no buses to the Cotati Smart Station. On Sundays, my mom's caregivers are walking 1.5 miles from the train station. There just needs, I wrote people and I've not got any answers of when this is going to be. These items need to be fixed now rather than a year from now, because it's really affecting a lot of people's lives. So I just wanted to update you on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Okay. We'll move on to our consent calendar. Just of note, item 4.6 will be removed from the agenda today and moved to a later date. So are there any questions or comments on items 4.1 through 4.5? Seeing none, are there any public comments 4.1 through 4.5.
There are no online comments.
Thank you. We get a motion on the joint SCTA, RCPA items consent calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Harvey and seconded by Judice. I think we need to do roll calls.
Okay, for consent roll call, Director Janice Cato Thompson,
Yes.
Director Chris Corsi,
Yes.
Director Susan Harvey,
Yes.
Director Gerard Judice, Director Nasa Hinton, Director Chair Ariel Kelly,
Yes.
Director Todd Lands,
Yes.
Director JB Lee,
Yes.
Director Sandra Lowe, Director Jeff Okrepke,
Yes.
Director David Rabbit, Director Linda Hopkins.
Abstain on 4-1, yes on all others.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. We'll move to our regular calendar, starting with 5.1. Director Cameron.
Thank you. So this item 5.1 is the transit implementation ad hoc, which met on April 29th. The agenda included the fiscal year 27 coordinated claim, where consensus was discussed and will be the next item on our agenda today. I also wanted to make the full board aware of the discussions that we're having around advocacy as well as the Redwood Bike Share. So around advocacy, there's a lot of discussion occurring right now with regard to the cap and invest impacts with regard to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, particularly surrounding the Tier 3 programs of Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities grants, the TIRCIP or Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Projects grant, as well as the LCTOP, the low carbon transit program that is part of our coordinated claim, which generates approximately $4 million for our local bus operators, and how we can, continue to have those fund sources funded going forward to keep transit funding high in Sonoma County, and it is impactful across the entire state. The second discussion that we had was really particularly surrounding the Redwood Bike Share program. The Redwood Bike Share program has been a 2-year pilot. That funding expires in October and is unfunded after then. So we are seeking funding from both state and regional bodies to help support extending that pilot for an additional 2 years in duration, as well as extending it north to up into Windsor and Healdsburg, and then south into beyond Larkspur to College of Marin. We also have a Redwood Bike Share tour scheduled where all of the directors are invited. You will be receiving a formal invitation tomorrow after this meeting. It is for May 22nd at 10 a.m., where we will meet at the Railroad Square station and take a train down to Rohnert Park, get on a Redwood Bike Share and ride them back to make sure that all the directors are familiar with the Redwood Bike Share, how it works, and the value that it's been adding to our community and the advantages for doing that. Myself, as well as our chair and vice chair, are confirmed. We did confirm Eddie Cummings from SMART to join us as well, where we can talk about some of the highlights of mascots as part of our morning together on the 22nd of May, a week from Friday. That concludes my report out on the transit implementation ad hoc, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you. And just in case anybody's wondering about riding a bike from Rohnert Park back to Santa Rosa, these are e-bikes. All you have to do is turn the pedals and they do the rest for you. Any comments from the board, questions from the board? Comments from the public on this item? Any online?
There are no online comments.
All right, and there's no action there. We'll go to item 5.2. Going to hear from Dana Turi.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So this item is on the fiscal year 26-27 coordinated claim for transit funding. which documents the distribution of three major state funding sources for transit: Transportation and Development Act, State Transit Assistance, and the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program. So I presented on this. Thank you so much. I presented on this to the board last month, and the item was continued due to a lack of votes to either pass or to continue the item. There were a couple of abstentions and some interest in delaying an action to provide some more time for Petaluma and Sonoma County to discuss a longstanding agreement between the two operators. So the item was continued, and since then, the city of Petaluma convened a meeting with Sonoma County Transit and SCTCA staff to discuss this agreement, which is essentially for the operations of routes 44 and 48 operated by Sonoma County Transit within the city of Petaluma. So, and at this meeting, it was a really good opportunity to have a discussion on how those routes work and how the funding works, and come to some very important agreements, including a consensus to maintain that existing interoperator agreement for this upcoming fiscal year, which is what's in the coordinated claim, and also a commitment from both agencies to review the service on those corridors, both by local and the intercity operators, and work together to come to an agreement on how service is provided, which could be reduced by either or both operators, but to really ensure that there's a cohesive plan around it to make sure that they can best serve the existing users of those services. There was also an agreement to develop a new interoperator agreement between the two agencies. It's really based on whatever that service is that the operators come up with. And that would be put into effect next year for next year's coordinated claim. So based on this discussion, staff's recommendation has not changed from last month. So it is to adopt the fiscal year 26-27 coordinated claim as presented last month. I do have the slides from last month available, and I would be more than happy to go through those or pull up any particular information that the board is interested in. If that is of interest, and we did, as James mentioned, we did discuss this with the transit implementation ad hoc at its April 29th meeting. So with that, I'll just turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, and again, offer to bring up any slides if there's interest.
Thank you, Dana. If anybody does need to revisit the slides from last month, let me know. This is the same recommendation that we had last month. The difference is that some time was taken, some time was obviously needed at last month's meeting for Petaluma and Sonoma County Transit to get together with you all and figure this out a little deeper than had been done before last month. As I recall, there was also some urgency as far as time last month, and I can only imagine that there's a little more urgency time-wise this month to get this done. But I know that one of the objections was from Petaluma, and wanted to see if Director Cater Thompson had anything to add here.
Well, I just want to add that I'm pleased that both the agencies had a conversation and that now we're in agreement to having a discussion throughout the year to figure out where we're going to go next year. And so we're on board with supporting this. And I just really appreciate the collaboration. There's a little bit of oddities here without a formal agreement. And so I think it's good to get this cleaned up and so we can move forward. Thank you.
Are there any questions to staff from the board? Any comment from the public in the room? Any comment online?
There are no online comments.
Is there any motion?
Move to approve And I'll second that.
Moved by Hopkins and seconded by Cater Thompson. Take the roll, Dawn.
Okay. Director Janice Cater Thompson,
Yes.
Director Chris Corsi,
Yes.
Director Susan Harvey,
Yes.
Director Gerard Giudice, Director Nasa Hinton, Chair Ariel Kelly,
Yes.
Director Todd Lands,
Yes.
Director JB Leap,
Yes.
Director Sandra Lowe, Director Jeff Okrepke,
Yes.
Director David Rabbit, Director Linda Hopkins.
Yes.
Could you, what's that total, Dawn?
7 yeses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yeses. I'm sorry.
Thank you. All right, that passes. Thanks, everybody. Item 5.3 is a budget item with a cast of characters presenting, starting with James Cameron.
So apologies, you have to deal with me for the first 4 budgets. David and Tanya are unavailable, but I will start out with presenting all of the 5 SCTCA budgets that are preliminary budgets for operations to continue. We do have the Regional Climate Protection Authority's budget first, followed by the Transportation Fund for Clean Act program budget next. Then we'll do Measure M, we'll do Go Sonoma, and then Brenton will close us out with the SCTA budget. These budgets are preliminary. They will be back to the board in October for final budgets and approval. And I will go ahead and kick it off with the next slide, please. Or I have this thing here. Let me see. There we go. Great. So RCPA, formed in 2009 by state legislation. Staff are employees of the SCTA. BayREN continues to be a significant fund source of RCPA in fiscal year 27, with 42% of the revenue coming from BayREN. 58% is from member contribution as well as grants. RCPA's role is critical to creating a collaborative Sonoma County focused on climate action across sectors, but the work plan is constrained due to a lack of sustainable source of funding. Approximately $432,000 decrease in BayREN funds going into fiscal year 27. This is due to the closure of the Water Upgrade Save program in 2005. The program's closure spanned 2 separate fiscal years, of which you can see in this graph, we took a look at fiscal year 25, where there has been a $2 million total decrease in RCPA funding with the closure of BayREN since fiscal year 25. There's also been a $25,000 decrease due to the completion of the Sonoma County EV charging plan that we expect to wrap up working with the county this current fiscal year on, and approximately a $12,000 increase based on the 3% increase in local contributions based on the Bay Area CPI. In summary, lack of sustainable funding sources for the RCPA and the loss of BayREN funding means that work on climate programs without a direct transportation nexus is significantly reduced. As a result, BayREN program reductions are a $318,000 decrease in consultant services, $8,000 decrease in overhead reimbursement, and $141,000 decrease in staff time, which reflects staff reassignments to transportation funded projects. The proposed RCPA preliminary budget is shown on this slide. In the preliminary budget, the use of fund balance has been avoided by shifting reimbursable staff time from climate projects and programs to transportation funded work and reducing the scope and budget for consultants providing BayREN outreach and marketing services by bringing some of those marketing and outreach and services in-house. Staff recommends that the board adopt the fiscal year 27 RCPA preliminary budget, and we'll move on to TFCA. So the TFCA, or the Transportation Fund for Clean Air budgets, are generated through a $4 surcharge on vehicle registrations in the Bay Area, 40% of which are programmed by the SCTA through the TFCA 40% program. Per the Bay Area Air District requirements, the TFCA 40% funds the SCTA to adopt projects that implement the Air District criteria for air quality improvements. The fiscal year 27 program of projects was approved today on the consent agenda, and 6.25% of the funds are reserved for SCTCA staff administering the TFCA program. Fiscal year 27 program cycle has a very welcomed increase of close to $1 million in bikeways and bike parking projects. This is in addition to the annual 40% amount, which is about 706,000 in regular funds. So looking at that revenue, there's that increase of over $1 million in increased revenue due to those one-time funds from the Air District, which is greatly appreciated. There's always an unmet need within these programs. Moving on to expenditures. The expenditures include a combination of new projects and $1.64 million in rollover funding for projects funded in prior years. Expenses higher than in prior years due to the additional close to $1 million, $976,000 in funding for bicycle projects. There was a $71 million increase in administration costs to cover the additional administration associated with the additional projects. Here is the TFCA preliminary budget as shown on this slide. Staff recommends the board adopt the fiscal year 27 TFCA budget. And now we'll move on to Measure M. Measure M budget. It was passed by the voters in 2004 for 20 years. It collected sales tax revenue from April 1st, 2005 through March 31st, 2025. The revenue collections from sales tax have now ceased, and they peaked in fiscal year 23 with approximately $32.6 million in revenue. While the revenue has stopped, the expenditures will continue in accordance with the voter-approved expenditure plan and the board-approved strategic implementation plan. So the strategic implementation plan really digs into the details of those individual projects and individual distributions, whereas the budget itself looks in a more holistic financial manner. The two programs that have been fully expended are the transit program to our 3 operators and our local streets rehab program, which was our street repair program to our 10 jurisdictions. The remaining programs have funds being expended, of which the sales tax, or there's revenue that comes from grants, interests, and partnerships, like the current partnership that we're working on with the city of Petaluma to deliver the Corona Road Overcrossing project. So that sales tax revenue is gone, but there is still some revenue going into these accounts. Moving on to expenditures. The expenditures will continue to decrease until Measure M is fully expended. When there is no funds remaining, most significant change from fiscal year 26 was what's called our STIP exchange. The STIP exchange went into effect last year. What that did is that took more administratively burdensome funds that are from the State Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP, and will be spent on US 101 landscaping project, whereas the less administratively burdenly funds are then exchanged, go out to our local jurisdictions to deliver projects that were part of that SCTCA funding program cycle 1. With that being said, staff recommends the board adopt the fiscal year 27 Measure M preliminary budget. Moving on to Go Sonoma. So Go Sonoma is an extension of Measure M. Measure M was renewed as Measure DD that went to the voters in 2020. We knew there was confusion with multiple Measure M's in Sonoma County, and we knew there was a Measure DD in Oakland, and there's actually now a Measure DD over in Cloverdale as well that can create confusion. That's why the reauthorization of Measure M in the voter-approved pamphlet was referred to as the Go Sonoma Act. And now even with regional parks looking at renewing their Measure M next year going forward. And, we have projects within Go Sonoma that are using Cloverdale's Measure DD funds. It's just important to refer to this as Go Sonoma to avoid that alphabet soup and confusion that happens with measured letters. This budget is guided by our Go Sonoma strategic implementation plan that has been board approved, as well as the voter approved expenditure plan. There are 4 major programs and 8 budgets associated with Go Sonoma. To capture the sub-programs, you start out with 1% administration that comes off the top, and then we have our apportionment programs. There are quarterly payments to all 10 jurisdictions for Go Sonoma roads. So that's 30% of the sales tax measure going straight by formula to the 10 jurisdictions. Then you have Go Sonoma Transit, which is quarterly payments to our 3 transit operators. 18% of the sales tax measure goes to them by formula for operations, and 2% goes to them with formula caps for fare-free programs. The SCTCA implements 3% for first last mile commuter programs and TDM programs, as well as 1% for commuter benefit programs like Safe Routes to School and Vision Zero. The remaining programs are the competitive pots. So those competitive pots of build bikeways and pathways and move traffic and improve safety, those are rolled into our SCTCA funding program cycle 2, the program that we expect to make recommendations for awards to this board later this summer. Moving on and looking at some of the performance of the sales tax, this bar graph, as well as our sales tax forecasts that are part of the budget, are prepared by our consultant HDL. Changes in sales tax revenue by major industry group, comparing that fourth quarter 24 to fourth quarter 25, can be seen on the bar chart. Consumer goods continue to be strong, and online sales are increasing while brick and mortar sales are decreasing. While our budget shows a 3% increase in sales tax, keep in mind that that is over the last 2 years. Our updated forecasts for fiscal year 26 are showing an increase of about 0.7% in sales tax revenue, whereas our budget that we passed for fiscal year 26 was projecting a small dip. Going forward, we do expect to see 1.3% of real growth in fiscal year 27. And after that, into fiscal year 28 and beyond, we do expect that return to trend of seeing that 2 to 3% growth in sales tax year over year. The forecast does take into account renewed inflationary pressures, interest rates, and high fuel prices that are likely to dampen summer travel. The total revenue currently includes the sales tax as well as some interest that we're generating on the funds, but future budgets, you will likely see grant revenue as well as some partnerships that form as well. Expenditure highlights. Keep in mind that the biggest number there, contributions to other governments, that's because that 58% of the sales tax goes direct by formula to those 10 jurisdictions, as well as those 3 local bus operators for our Go Sonoma Roads and our Go Sonoma Transit programs. The remaining contributions to other governments are for the implementation of our SCTCA funding plan cycle 1, prior awards that are being implemented through the sales tax. And then wrapping that up, there are the SCTCA programs that include about $924,000 in consultant work and about $640,000 in staff time working on the programs within Go Sonoma. Moving on to the last slide, Go Sonoma is in strong fiscal shape. It is a sustainable fund source for transportation in Sonoma County, and staff recommends the board approve the fiscal year 27 preliminary budget. With that, next up is Brenton Hare to take us through our SCTA budget.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. I am Brenton Hare. I am the Fiscal and Administrative Analyst for the SCTA, and I will be presenting the SCTA portion of this budget. So the Sonoma County Transportation Authority was created by ordinance in 1990, and it employs all 17 staff for this organization, and the SCTA is in manageable financial shape. On the next slide, we have an organizational chart for the office. We have 16 currently filled positions and 1 vacancy, that is the Senior Marketing and Communications Specialist. All right, and now moving on to changes and highlights for the revenue side of the SCTA budget in 26-27. As mentioned before, labor reimbursements from Go Sonoma are increasing by $110,000 due to increasing activity in that program, while RCPA and Bay Ren reimbursements are decreasing by $141,000 due to the decline and closure of Water Upgrade Save. Regional Measure 3 revenues related to long-term work on Highway 37 are expected to be about $3.8 million, and there's $4.2 million of budgeted federal revenues for the Safe Streets and Roads for All 2024 grant, along with $965,000 in local contribution matches from various cities. For changes and highlights for the expenditures of the SCTA this year, labor costs are budgeted to increase by $272,000. This is due primarily to changes of benefits to maintain alignment with the County of Sonoma, as well as a 3% staff-wide COLA or cost of living adjustment. Contributions to other governments are increasing by $9.4 million from last year, and that is due to increased spending on the STIP exchange projects that were mentioned during the Measure M budget and sea level rise projects. And consultant costs of $3.7 million are expected for Highway 37 long-term environmental design work. All right, and here is the summary budget showing a use of fund balance due to the spending down of those STIP exchange and great mitigation funds. And staff recommends that the board approve the SCTA preliminary budget and associated personnel policy updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenton. All right, a lot of numbers there. Are there questions from the board for staff? Director Hopkins.
My question is just, I know that we had our update from our legislative update from Politico on consent calendar. I'm wondering if they've done any work in terms of looking at our sales tax revenue and how policy changes at the state might impact it over time. I'm hearing increased conversations in Sacramento around this whole sort of whether or not you have a distribution center and who gets to keep the sales tax revenue. It's not clear that there's momentum since some cities and counties benefit and some don't from the current system. But I'm just wondering if that's ever a question that we've asked our legislative affairs folks.
So we have not had any of those discussions with Politico Group. We have had very extensive discussions about that with our consultant HDL. And so HDL provides sales tax forecasting for our organization as well as other organizations within Sonoma County and across California. They provide not just the updated numbers, but also the long-term forecasting and then follow various lawsuits and laws that have affected this in the past. There's 2 primary types of sales tax. One is the baseline Bradley-Burns sales tax that goes to the county. That's that base 1%. And that's a model that does tend to have more funding being diverted to distribution centers, say in the Central Valley, as opposed to our sales tax, which is the transaction and use tax, which is always at the actual point of sale. So when you're buying something from Amazon, it is the address where you're being shipped to, not where it is physically located when it occurs. So it has been less of an issue for our revenues as far as Go Sonoma. It's been more of an issue for our revenues within within TDA, because TDA follows that same model as the 1% base Bradley-Burns. It's an extra 0.25% on top of that. And it has been having declining revenues where ours has been having just slightly increasing revenues. And it has to do with the fact that those online sales are on an uptick. and the brick and mortar sales are on a downtick. The jaws haven't closed to where there's actually more online sales than brick and mortar. Brick and mortar is still the majority of them, but they came close to closing in during just shortly after COVID, and they are back trending in that direction. When you don't have Amazon distribution centers and you're having things given to your county, and you're buying things from out of county, it is unfavorable for us. Yeah.
But it's been a boon for the Central Valley, huh? Thank you.
Director Harvey.
To add to that, Supervisor Hopkins, I was at the policy committee meeting for rev and tax at the state. And even though the city managers group had made recommendations that weren't accepted by the board, the city managers group did agree to continue working on that to try and see if they couldn't come up with an agreement. So rather than just disbanding because the recommendations were ignored, they agreed that they would continue that work because, as you point out, it is a little bit unfair. But so more work will happen in this next year, we hope, with the city managers group. So they didn't give up.
James, you mentioned during your presentation on the TFCA budget, a grant for bikeways and bike parking. Is there any opportunity to use that for funding Redwood Bike Share?
Yes, as part of our recommendations, we did recommend $100,000 from that the board approved during the consent calendar to help fund to match whatever funds we can get. But based on the competitive nature of that grant account, we felt like 100,000 was the most that could be attributed to it based on the benefit cost of the project.
And we just decided that a little while ago.
Thank you.
Aren't we smart?
I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Any comments from folks in the room? Any public online, Dawn?
There's a comment or a hand up for Tom Conlon.
Thank you for the opportunity. Tom Conlon here in Sonoma Valley. I appreciate the discussion about the sales tax issues with distribution centers. I would just point out that a couple of years ago, Amazon had suggested that they were going to build distribution centers in Sonoma County. And while right now it might be unfair, we should probably look to the future because it might actually behoove us to have the law stay the way it is if we end up with our own local distribution centers. I was initially critical of the WTrans VMT analysis that was done for the facility proposed in rural Sonoma Valley, adjacent to the new roundabout that's been proposed and is in planning, I believe. But that was based on really just poor analysis. I think that a back of the envelope calculation would suggest that vehicle miles traveled might actually reduce if larger trucks were bringing in the bulk of goods to be stored locally and then shorter distribution trips out to the actual last mile delivery point. So I just make those comments for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it?
There's no other comments, online comments.
Thank you, Don. Do we need to take these separately? We can take them all in one fell swoop. Okay. Can I get a motion on items 5.31 through 5.35?
Okay.
Moved by Hopkins, second by Harvey.
Ready for roll call? Director Janice Cater Thompson,
Yes.
Director Chris Corsi,
Yes.
Director Susan Harvey,
Yes.
Director Gerard Giudice, Director Nasa Hinton, Chair Ariel Kelly,
Yes.
Director Todd Lands, Director JB Leap,
Yes.
Director Sandra Lowe, Director Jeff Okrepke,
Yes.
Director David Rabbit.
Yes.
Director Linda Hopkins. That's everybody.
Thank you. All right. We'll turn to Chris Barney and reports and announcements.
Good afternoon, directors. I'll be providing the activity report presentation today. So I think Don's going to bring up some slides. And we should be able to get through this relatively quickly. So go ahead and just start out with a nice picture from the SMART groundbreaking from Friday. So we'll be talking about.
Chris, can I stop you on that picture? Because I noticed this the other day.
Yeah.
That the pavilion in Healdsburg has this Stonehenge effect. And when Chair Kelly was up there, as you can see in this picture, there was a beam of sunlight that shone down upon her.
Oh.
And, you know, by the time the rest of us got up there, we were fully shaded by the sun. And this makes for a magnificent picture, but you have to be a Healdsburg person to know when it's time to speak.
Got it. So yeah, great picture. We're glad to have this captured. So we'll go ahead and move on. Oh, there we go. So yeah, that may show up in another plan at some point. So we have another one at the end too. So I'll be talking through these different categories, beginning with planning. We'll also cover some highlights from projects and programs, also engagement and communications, and rounding up with funding. So starting with our comprehensive transportation plan, Sonoma Moves 2050. So we presented the draft on that a few months ago. It was out for public comment through the end of March, and we received close to 50 comments on the draft CDP. So we reviewed those comments and used those to compile the draft or the final CDP based on your feedback from the board of directors and also public and advisory committee feedback. So that's complete now and it's in final design. So we're looking forward to presenting that to you in June for approval. So moving on to transit integration, there's a lot of activity in this area over the last month. So staff continues to provide support for the implementation of mascots. We're also providing support on the Sonoma County Transit Strategic Plan and are in the process of selecting a consultant for the Sync Sonoma Transit Plan. So, and we're hoping to bring a recommendation for a consultant contract for that project back to you also in June. Moving on to the Equitable Electric Vehicle Charging Plan. The draft report is complete. Staff have reviewed that and provided some comments, and the project is on track to publish a final report by June of 2026. So moving on to projects. So a few of these items were on the consent calendar for today. So starting out with TDA 3 or the Transportation Development Act Article 3. We received 3 projects which you approved today, totaling just over $750,000. So we'll go ahead and move on to TFCA or the Transportation Fund for Clean Air Funding Program. So James did mention the additional funding in this program. So we were able to recommend some additional projects as part of this program of projects this year. So we recommended 7 projects totaling just over 1.6 million, and excited to see some great projects in there. And they are all focused on active transportation, transportation demand management programs, safety, and transit projects. So moving on to the 121 at 8th Street East project. So the project team has elevated the NEPA documentation for the project from a categorical exclusion to an environmental assessment at the request of Caltrans and the Federated Indians of Great and Rancheria. So this change means more time and more analysis associated with the environmental process for the project, which will again take more time in delivering the final product. So rounding out our programs with the Go Sonoma Commutes program, there's a new Go Sonoma app available to start logging trips and collecting awards. The app is available for Apple and Android devices. It's available in the Apple App Store and on Google Play. It's also Bike to Anywhere month or Bike Month for the month of May. And there are 2 Bike Month challenges underway that we'd like to highlight. One is a raffle through the Go Sonoma commutes program for bike commuters, so they can log trips and be entered into that raffle for rewards. And there's also a Bike Month team challenge underway being hosted by the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition. And there is a SCTCA staff team participating in that. So moving on to engagement and communication. So again, a lot of activity over the last month. So one of the bigger events that we participated in was the Santa Rosa Junior College Transit Club Conference, where staff were able to discuss improving student transit access with the folks there, and also possibilities for transit improvements. Communication staff also created a State Route 37 partnership newsletter, which will be providing information on project activities a couple times a year for that large project. So this slide has a few pictures of SCTCA staff out in the field. Great to be out hearing everyone's thoughts and ideas about climate and transportation. So a few of the events that we were able to table at over the last month include a variety of Earth Day and climate-related events, such as the Petaluma Future Fest, Earth Day events in Santa Rosa and Windsor, the Sonoma Trash Bash, and the Sonoma State Green Resources Fair, and others along with that. And rounding things out with funding, work is ongoing on the SCTCA funding program cycle 2, with program applications being evaluated and scored. So we are planning on bringing the results of that back to you this summer. And you can see a summary of the projects being evaluated on the right side of this slide, incorporating 72 projects with a requested funding amount of almost $800 million. So we've also developed a new grant coordination service and selected the Grant EZEC platform to provide grant search capability to staff and partners. So hopefully we'll be able to identify some additional grant funding through this program. So with that, we have another great picture from Friday. So yeah,
I rest my case.
Yeah, we didn't notice the light pillar there, but with that, I'll go ahead and turn things back over to you, Mr. Chair. Directors.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Any questions for Chris? Comments? Public comment? Anyone in the room? Anyone online?
There are no online comments.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are,
Well, Chair,
yes,
if I may just report out on the exec committee as part of this.
please.
So so formality to just make it clear. So our exec committee did have a meeting scheduled at 1:30 due to lack of a quorum. We did not have a meeting. And then the last thing on the agenda is regional agency reports and through the chair.
Regional agencies, anyone want to report on goings on? Rumor has it we have a new president. So president and great. George Hopkins.
I just want to mention that the Bay Area Air District met last week to consider our water heater zero NOx appliance rule. Due to the 111 virtual comments and more than 90 in-person comments, we did not actually make it to deliberation. So that is actually scheduled to take place Wednesday at 10 a.m. when the board will reconvene to deliberate. But I just wanted to let everyone know that we hopefully, I mean, it will be the determination of the board, but the goal is to move forward with some amendments to address affordability concerns. And that includes, having exemptions for folks who are low income or who are housing burdened, defined based on a percentage of their income, as well as exemptions for folks who are essentially kind of unique in terms of the amount of expense that would be required. Like these are folks who would have to dig up their driveway or have major electrical upgrades in order to be able to move towards zero NOx water heater. And so that is going to happen on Wednesday. I also want to share that actually Sonoma Clean Power has stepped up with a $2,500 rebate, which would help close any cost gap between your traditional water heater and a zero NOx water heater. So that, along with some other incentives that are Bay Area or statewide, will hopefully make it very attractive. And we are anticipating that on Sonoma Clean Power side, that will be over $1 million program that will run for, I can't remember if it was 6 or 9 months, but I can get you all the details and hopefully we can share that out through our networks as well. But it's sort of time to actually kind of coincide with the Bay Area Air District's rulemaking process.
Can you talk a little bit about the requirements? Is this your replace as needed?
This is exactly a replacement when it fails. And so this is not a point of sale. This is not, you all have to go out and change your perfectly functioning water heaters. It is when, it reaches its end of life. And we also have sort of a program that we're working on for emergency replacements. So, right, folks aren't going without hot water. If, for instance, they do need to move forward with the upgrade to a zero NOx version. So,
okay.
And then we also have a space heater rule, but that is not being tackled because that was the sort of second phase that I think would kick into effect in 2029. So we'd be more discussing that next year and the following year. So this is just water heaters.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Seeing none, I think we are ready to adjourn. Thanks all. Okay, our next meeting is on June 8th, same time, same place.